What's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish Podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with Scoop Duck on 3, coming to you on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. Bright and early recording this morning. I'll get it posted just as soon as I can. Really excited to be back on the pod. Going to kind of give some of our final thoughts on the Montana State win for Oregon and turn the page as the Ducks stay at home in Eugene to welcome the Oklahoma State Cowboys on Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Pacific kick on CBS. We'll have Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson on the call for that one. Not rolling solo today. You can see it in the title there. It is another Tuesday with Ted. We got That Show Out West host Ted Leroux and Scoop Duck contributor back on the show. Ted, how we doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's a 1-0 Tuesday. It's a victory Tuesday. So I'm feeling pretty good. Excited to dive into what is already becoming a very newsworthy week, and we're only at Tuesday.
Yeah, we're going to get into some more of Dan Lanning's comments from his Monday evening press conference, and then we'll just kind of see where the show takes us. But excited to be chatting about an Oregon W to start off the year, 59-13 over there in Eugene. But let's just get into some of the juicy updates from Monday night right off the top here, Ted. I saw some people were tweeting about it. Dan Lanning was very forthcoming with the latest on the injury front for Oregon.
Yeah.
The biggest one that we saw from the game itself was Emmanuel Pregnon, Oregon starting left guard. Went out fairly early with what appeared to be a right leg injury of some sort, but Lanning said on Monday that he expects Emmanuel to be good to go for Saturday's contest against the Cowboys. Dylan Gresham was in a neck brace, and it looks like he's going to be down for some time, for a little bit at least. We didn't get too much of a timeline there, but Theron Johnson, the Northwestern DB transfer, he should be good to go this weekend for the Ducks. And Kavika Rogers looks like an ankle injury along the offensive line, but they're kind of still working through that one and seeing where that one ultimately lies. So that's kind of what the biggest little tidbits out there. But what'd you make of those little injury updates, Ted?
Yeah, overall, I think a lot of positivity, I think, coming out of that. And Dan was more open maybe than I would expected him to usually be when talking about injuries. But I think that kind of reflects just the confidence he has in these guys. I mean, I'm watching the broadcast of this last game on Saturday, and Emmanuel Pregnon, he's not carted off the field or anything. He's got a little bit slower to him getting off the field, but then he comes on the field. He's on the sideline. He's got his helmet on, but it sounds like the game was out of hand at that point, so they're not going to risk anything. So, when I'm watching the replay, getting rolled up like that, you just never know how severe it is going to be. But that is good news. That is good news, certainly, with Emmanuel Pregnon. He is a piece that you certainly need up front on the offensive line. And Kavika Rogers, another depth piece on there. That sounds pretty promising as well. A guy that was out in this last game that didn't play, Theron Johnson. Sounds like he's going to be good to go. Dan said Theron should be back this week. He was probably in a position where he could have gone and pushed through it, but they wanted to give him more practice reps. So that's a good sign as well. And they were very deep at corner this last week. They were very good at corner. With Brandon Finney was out there. Of course, Ife Obadegwu, that was kind of your starting two. Then you got Naeem Offord. You got Sione Lalea. Now you add in Theron Johnson, a second-team All-Big Ten guy from last year. It's going to be exciting to see what he can do once he gets in the lineup and exactly where he kind of fits in. I think that's really intriguing going forward. But Dylan Gresham is maybe the one where it wasn't as positive when it comes to returning in the near future. Lanning said, quote, Dylan's going to be down for a little bit, precautionary right now. That's another guy. We saw him kind of flash during the spring game, that speedy, quick slot receiver type. So you kind of get him in, see where he could fit into the rotation when all is said and done. But yeah, I think overall, Oregon is a team that's been no stranger to the injury bug with, of course, Evan Stewart in the spring and Trey McNutt in the fall. But man, this is why you recruit this many great 5- and 4-star players. One guy goes down, another guy comes in, and you're doing pretty good.
And that was one of the coolest things from Saturday's opener, Ted, was just the amount of rotations that we saw across the board. Like, this guy's in. Oh, how about this guy? And I mean, I almost feel like every receiver got some sort of a touch for Ross Douglas against Montana State. Even fellow true freshman Cooper Perry, Ja'Cory Moore obviously has been the talk of the town, and he had his fair share of some exciting plays, but it was nice to see Perry out there get his feet wet a little bit as well. To talk a little bit about the offensive line, I thought that Oregon was presented with its first, I guess you could say, challenge. I'm trying to figure out the right way to word it, but obviously Pregnon got hurt, and then you had Kavika get a little bit banged up as well there. So what they do, they moved Dave Iuli over to left guard, and then you had Matt Bedford come in at right guard, which I think really just spoke to the depth of the defensive line, or the offensive line, excuse me. Feels like it's a little bit stronger on the interior right now, but I thought the Ducks really kind of navigated that well, and I was really excited to see Dave Iuli get the start there at right guard to get this one going.
Yeah, Dave getting action in the last handful of games last year when Marcus Harper goes out due to injury. And that was the battle, right? When we're talking about even going back to spring ball and into fall camp, we felt pretty solidified about the rest of the line. Left tackle was going to be World, left guard was going to be Emmanuel Pregnon, center was going to be Pancho, and then right tackle was going to be Alex Harkey. That was the battle. And I think a lot of Duck fans were intrigued to see exactly who would be out there with the first group. And Dan Lanning talked about Dave Iuli and what he's done. And he's like, man, I love Dave. I love that he's doing the extra work. I love that he's kind of putting in that extra effort. So he kind of raved about Dave Iuli at this latest at Monday's press conference as well, to kind of circle it all back together. But yeah, I think it certainly signals the depth. I think we knew what Matthew Bedford was when he came in at the beginning of last season. And I agree that I think there's more depth right now in the middle than maybe there is maybe on the outside at tackle. But overall, I think it's pretty good. I think overall it's pretty good. I feel really good about the starting group. Maybe there's things you could certainly nitpick as well. I mean, there's always things that you can nitpick after game one, but yeah, overall feel good about the depth, feel good about that starting group. And boy, did they keep Dante clean on Saturday. They
sure did. Yeah. He didn't get touched really. I mean, except for the couple running plays that they dialed up for him in that game. Let's talk a little bit about Mike Gundy, Ted, because he's always been known as a fiery character in the college football world, and for whatever reason, I guess he wanted to take some shots at Oregon to get his week going. Speaking over there in Stillwater, talking about name, image, and likeness, and resources, and said something to the effect of Oregon spending $40 million on last year's roster. And Lanning was asked about those comments. He didn't volunteer his response on his own, but he was asked about it. So I'm going to read the response here that I thought probably has a lot of fans fired up. Lanning saying, quote, "If you want to be a top 10 team in college football, you better be invested in winning, and we spend to win. Some people save to have an excuse for why they don't. Ultimately, he's a great coach. They've done an unbelievable job, but I want to be a team that's competing at the highest level, and we're really fortunate to be in that situation. I can't speak on their situation. I have no idea what they got in their pockets over there. I'm sure UT Martin maybe didn't have as much as them last week, and they played, so we'll let it play out." Man, I like hearing that from Lanning because it just shows that he's dialed in. I feel like it speaks to the confidence that he has in his team. And of course, just the position that Rob Mullins and the rest of the top level folks over there in Eugene have put Oregon in.
Yeah, I mean, you want to invest in a winner, and Oregon has won a lot over the past 20 years plus. Or so. So I think that's contributed to a lot of the investment of where Oregon is. Just a good business decision. It's a good return on investment as well. And we know Oregon is in a great spot with all of the support that they certainly have. And it's funny, it's interesting coming from Mike Gundy, who's been a long time, of course, head coach at Oklahoma State. They had themselves a pretty wealthy booster too in T. Boone Pickens, right? Over the years, right as you were saying that, I kind of dialed up on the old Google machine here, and I've got T. Boone Pickens making hundreds of millions of donations as recently as 2019. So I got a $165 million gift. I got, so it's kind of interesting that Oklahoma State kind of sits in this position, considering maybe the past donations that they've also had from a big booster. These comments can kind of come from, maybe Oklahoma State, right? They're coming off of a bad year. Maybe it's used to be like motivate their base a little bit more. Hey, we need to be able to pick up our investment a little bit. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe it isn't. I'm not sure, but it's this is something that comes Oregon's way a lot. a lot. But I think what it comes down to is Dan's right. You need to be invested. You shouldn't apologize for being in the situation that Oregon is in. Like, people talked about last year, what was it? Like Ohio State had a $20 million roster and all these numbers. It seemed to get bigger every week. Oregon's numbers seem to get bigger every week. A $20 million, $30 million, $40 million roster and all that. But, I think there's a little bit, I think there's less, but there's still a little bit of almost negative connotations. Hey, you bought your roster, that kind of thing. But that should almost be a point of pride right now. It's like, yeah, we're invested. The people that support this program believe in this program. And if you haven't looked around lately, NIL and rev sharing, they're a pretty big deal. And that's a big part of how you get players. That's a big part, maybe an even bigger part of how you retain players as well. So as long as Oregon has that investment, they're going to be at the top of the game, and they certainly shouldn't apologize for that.
And that just speaks to, Ted, I think, where Oregon's at as far as this new era of college athletics, which has really kind of been coming together for the past couple of years. But like the player retention, the player acquisition, to an even bigger point, the staff retention, I think that's pretty big. It's not like these coaches are sticking around or coming over from their respective schools for free. So I think that's obviously a big part of it as well. And Oregon's doing it with the best of them. So that was definitely something that I wanted to hit on, just because I know a lot of people are talking about it on social media to get the week started here. But let's dive a little bit more into some final thoughts here on Oregon's big win over Montana State. I haven't gotten a chance to tune into your show to get all of your thoughts, so I'm like, hey, let me bring Ted on. Sure. Where do you kind of want to dive in? What stood out to you? What did you make of that win in week 1?
Oh boy, there's a lot to take from it. And it's interesting. I kind of talked about it on TSOW yesterday, and I'm like, I don't want to be, especially after week 1, I don't want to be in a position where, every single week I'm coming on the show and I'm saying all these great things and positive things. It's like, oh man, Ted, all he does is positive things. But it's really hard after a game like that not to look at this and say, like, yeah, a lot of that was really impressive. And I think the things that really stood out to me that was impressive right off the bat was, first, Dante Moore's control and command of the offense. I mean, if you didn't know any better, you would think this guy was one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the country. He was a multi-year starter. He's just an absolute field general out there. Like, that decision that he made at the beginning of what would have been last season, transferring from UCLA to Oregon, knowing that this was going to be Dylan Gabriel's team last year. It's probably going to go down when Dante Moore plays in the NFL and he retires from the NFL, and all is said and done, that might go down as the smartest football decision he's ever made, right? Because it was very clear at UCLA because, when you go in as a true freshman, I mean, it kind of depends a lot on the situation. Kind of like when you get drafted in the NFL, you go in as a rookie quarterback, are you on the team with a bad O-line, bad weapons, or do you have a good situation? It was clearly not a good situation at UCLA his freshman year. And I think he started to kind of form some bad habits. So he needed to go back to school, so to speak. He needed to go back to the learning tree. Dante has said in his recent press availabilities that says, hey, my separation this year is going to be my preparation. And then he also goes on to say he was able to learn a lot about that preparation from a guy that's played more college football than anybody in Dylan Gabriel. So, I mean, he goes out there and he's doing run checks. He's doing pass protection checks. He's sliding the protection. I think he was kind of adjusting some things on that long pass play to Jay Harris. And certainly that play turned out pretty well to put Oregon into scoring position. I mean, he's going through every single one of his progressions, taking what the defense is giving him. Montana State was playing two deep back, so there weren't going to be a lot of deep shots. And I don't think this was going to be a game where Oregon was going to fire a lot of deep shots down the field just because they wanted to keep it pretty vanilla, knowing that the talent advantage that they have. But what Dante did was just it was just impressive. I mean, it shouldn't be any surprise. We've been hearing that out of fall camp. We've been hearing it even going all the way back to the spring as well. And we knew that he had, even at UCLA, he flashed the arm talent. He flashed the accuracy, right? We knew that. That's, but it was all about between the ears. It was kind of all about the mental side of the game for him. And like, if he's got that figured out, and if he's got this full command of this offense right now in week 1, imagine what it's going to be, when we get to the middle of the season, once we get to November as well. I think the offensive line has a lot to do with that because he was kept squeaky clean. What happens when Dante gets hit? What happens when Dante gets knocked down a little bit? That's Penn State. That seems to be like that's going to be the first big test, not only for Dante, but I think for the rest of the season, considering these squads that they have on their schedule in the next 3 games for Oregon. So that was certainly something that I took away. Just the effort blocking wise on the perimeter from Kenyon Sadiq and especially Decorian Moore. Decorian had the highest run blocking grade according to PFF. I mean, you had to just drive his opponent into the ground on that Gary Bryant touchdown. I mean, you love to see that. That's something awesome. And then last thing I'll kind of wrap up in terms of my takeaways. This defensive line, Amari Washington, man, he's something. He is an amazing football player. And I was doing my rewatch on Sunday, and I noticed a couple of times where I'm like, I kind of looked. I'm like, no offsides, no flag, because Amari Washington, his timing was that good. He was that quick off the football. Like it was, and I put a photo, a picture of
I saw that one, yeah,
on Twitter, where there's other parts of the Oregon defensive line. They're still in their stance. And I had to double take. Nope, the ball is snapped at that point in time. So post snap, when Amari engages with a pass protector or a run blocker, right? He's already working with a tremendous size advantage at 6'4", 335, 336, something like that. And, when Bruce Feldman put out his freaks list, we saw his vertical, we saw his bench, we saw his squat, just the crazy numbers and the athleticism and the quickness and the agility. So you factor that in. He's going to win a lot of those one-on-one battles post snap. But now you give him an extra, that split second, that quarter second, a half second, whatever it is, advantage, and it's game over. And that's exactly what you saw. He was tied for the team lead in tackles. You got the photo up there for the viewers on YouTube. It's just, it's crazy. There's a big one thing I did notice. Amari, there's a big gap between where Amari is, I think, and the rest of the defensive line is. And that's not a slight. I don't think the guys like Bear Alexander, to the Tion Grays, to the Terrence Greens of the world. I just think that's a compliment to where Amari is, how he's going to be a game plan changer. Plain and simple. People are going to see him on tape. People are going to see him throughout the game, and they're going to be like, we got to do something else. That's what Montana State did. They wanted to run the ball. We know that was their identity, and they learned pretty quickly, we're not going to run the ball when 52's in there. So that was something that really stood out to me. Fantastic performance for Amari. Excited to see what he can do the rest of the year.
Lots of great stuff there, Ted. Yeah, I loved what we saw from Dante. Just super dialed in, clean performance. I think one of the more underrated, kind of drives from that game was to close out the first half. Like they got the ball back after the Montana State field goal, and I can't remember exactly where they started it, but it must have been like at least 60 or so yards in a minute, and they just flew down the field. No problems at all. And I think you just like to see that because it shows the knowledge of the offense, just how comfortable he's feeling. And the clock management skill as well. That's something that a young quarterback has to do well. So the offensive stuff was really good. Malik Benson was one of the surprise performances I think some people would maybe talk to. And if he can step up and continue to be a solid piece for the Ducks this year, I think that's something that's going to be really exciting to see. So what do you think, Ted? You want to turn the page a little bit to Oak State as we kind of get our way into the week here?
Yeah, sure. One last thing I'll kind of say before we turn the page there, kind of what you just said with Malik Benson. I feel pretty good that the top 3 wide receivers have kind of, I don't want to say separated themselves. It's one game, it's Montana State, it's FCS. I get that. But it just seems to me that Malik Benson, Decorian Moore on the outside, and then Gary Bryant Jr. on the inside, when you factor the experience and the pop and the explosiveness of guys like Malik and Gary that we were able to see on Saturday. And then you kind of look at somebody like a Kyler Casper. I think they're going to utilize his size. I just don't think he's maybe in that, starting rotation. We saw some from Justice Lowe a little bit. We saw a little bit from Jeremiah McClellan, but I just think that top 3 wide receiver group, it feels like maybe they're starting to solidify themselves at the top. And I love that. I love what the skill set and the twitchy athleticism that Decorian has and what I mentioned about those 2 guys. So I guess that's what I'll just say to wrap up is I think those 3 seem to be separating themselves, but but we'll see what happens these next couple of weeks.
Certainly an encouraging performance to kick off the 2025 campaign from Ross Douglas's wide receiver room as he comes over from Syracuse. And we'll get to see the Ducks again this weekend. And maybe you're a Duck fan heading to Eugene. Are you going to an Oregon game this season? If you are, the Oakway Lifestyle Center at the corner of Oakway and Coburg is the destination for Duck fans. Whatever you're looking for, they've got it all. Get a bite to eat at Sun River Brewing or PF Chang's. Check out shops like Lululemon or Nordstrom Rack. You need a place to stay? Book your lodging at the Hyatt Place at Oakway Center and visit their rooftop bar. The Oakway Lifestyle Center is walking distance from Autzen Stadium, has something for everybody, and is a great post-game place to celebrate another Duck victory. Max Torres and Ted Leroux here with you on the Ducks Dish podcast, Tuesday, September 3rd. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. Appreciate you being along for the ride. Ted, let's turn the page a little bit to Oregon's Week 2 opponent, Oklahoma State. The Cowboys head to Eugene coming off a 27-7 win over the UT Martin Skyhawks to start off the season, but they will do so a little bit shorthanded as starting quarterback Haas Haney, I believe he broke his foot in that opener, was really showing some flashes there right out of the gate, but I feel like that's kind of the biggest note that we're kind of breaking down here as we head into Week 2.
Yeah, that's the big thing is that was the quarterback battle for Oklahoma State between Henne and then Zach Flores, who's going to start this week. Flores was 13 of 20, 136 yards. So, together they threw for 30 times in the game. And this is I think what Oklahoma State is going to look to do this year, kind of circling back to Dan Lanning and his press conference early in the week. He talked about that and what the quote unquote cowboy challenges will be. Those are my words, not his. He says they're going to take shots. They're going to spread you out. They're going to move with a lot of tempo. They're going to try to get vertical. They're going to try to get down the field. I mean, their main target on the outside is wide receiver Terrell Davis, who is a Division II transfer, I believe, but he was targeted 6 times, 2 catches for 75 yards. So I think when you look at this game for Oregon specifically, they were not tested like the safeties, corners and man-on-man stuff. They were not tested deep at all. Okay, it was very much against Montana State. It was very much, Taco Dowler running a crosser, catching and running. Like that was their that was essentially their passing game and how Montana State was able to move the football. And that's maybe something that Oregon needs to be able to shore up to be able to keep that in check a little bit going forward. But this is going to be a little bit different. I think that they are going to stretch the field a little bit. Oregon is going to be challenged. So now, and I think this is a good thing. I think this is a good thing where it's like, okay, now we kind of see something where we didn't really, it's still kind of untested and unproven, even though Oregon has a really big talent advantage. It is nice to be able to see maybe a different part of the team really be able to showcase exactly what they can do. So Ifeoma Badegwu, Brandon Finney, what are these guys going to be able to do in man coverage against these guys? And then we know the secondary and the defensive line has a complementary relationship. I think that this could be a big day for the defensive line, for Tatum Tubioti, for Mateo Uyunglele, for Blake Purchase, for Amari Washington, for all of these great pass rushers, of course, that we know about. Not overly sold on the Oklahoma State offensive line. You got a freshman quarterback making his first start in Autzen Stadium. That's a mixture recipe, put it in the oven, and that's a recipe for success. I think for Oregon, get after the young quarterback, rattle him. I think he'll make mistakes. I think you could see some turnovers from Oregon in this game. That would not surprise me. We didn't really see much of that just because Montana State's offense was very safe. Whether it was the run game, whether it was a short passing game, it was very high percentage. So maybe Oklahoma State is going to maybe, like Dan said, take some more shots down the field, and that opens up the opportunity for the Ducks to be able to force some turnovers and see exactly what kind of playmakers that the Ducks have in the secondary. And the pass rush was something last week where because of the run game and the short, quick pass game, they didn't really have a ton of opportunities to really unleash his pass rushers. Now, Mateo did get 2 sacks, and they still did a really good job considering that these were quick passing concepts. But this week, I think that they're going to be a little bit longer. You're going to work the medium passing game. You're going to work the deep passing game. So I think this is a great opportunity for Oregon to really flex their muscle on offense or on defense, offensively for the Ducks. It's just very much. I was looking at this. I was taking an early peek into the Cowboys, and I'm like, just do what you do. just kind of approach it like you did against Montana State. You've got such a big talent advantage. Just execute what you need to execute. I'm very curious to see exactly what Oregon does, how Will Stein calls this game, because it was very much it kind of came out running the football early on that first drive against Montana State. And like I said, it was Malik Benson's running slants, he's running digs in the middle of the field. I mean, they're throwing short passes to Kenyon Sadiq, and he's stiff arming a guy into oblivion. It's very catch and run. That's kind of how it was. So we'll see if that changes in any way. I don't know if it will. But yeah, there's all sorts of advantages, I think, on both sides of the ball. Considering that Oregon has a game under their belt, okay, they're like, okay, we got ourselves in a rhythm. We got the car out of the garage, so to speak. Now it's time to kind of floor the accelerator. And I got a feeling that Mike Gundy didn't do himself any favors, maybe in avoiding this type of result. But I got a feeling that Oregon's going to really let this thing, it's going to get wide open. I think that they could really excel in this game against a team like Oklahoma State.
I could see that being the case. I really could, because it seems like last week could have been even worse than it was. But they used the game being in hand to get some more guys quality reps, which I think is what you want from any head coach. My excitement for this game really does kind of lie in what you were talking about, Ted, just what we're going to see from the defense. I'm excited to see how these offensive backs maybe measure up to a bit more of a significant challenge from the skill positions, particularly the wide receivers. With some of these vertical passing attempts that we're going to see from the Cowboys, what does that also mean? It means there's more time for the play to develop and some of these guys in the front seven to get after Flores, which will be fun because the Ducks had 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. I think we could see both of those numbers climb in a pretty significant way this upcoming week. True freshman Nasir Wyatt was one of the guys that got a sack. I think that kind of flew under the radar a little bit. Tatum Tuioti played a heck of a game. My God, I really feel like that tandem with him and Mateo on the edge is just going to be terrific for them this year. And there's just a lot that I think we still need to learn about this defense. Maybe the linebackers can show a little bit more of an impact, have a little bit more of an impact in this game with Jerry Mixon getting a pretty good share of the snaps last week. So there's a lot you can look for in this game. And I think seeing the defense maybe take a step forward or have a more significant test is one of the biggest points that we're going to be looking at this week.
Couple of things I wanted to touch on, I think, with what you just said there. I thought Tatum Tuioti played a really good game. And I said it during the show, and I think I'm going to have a social clip up today on Twitter and stuff. I think he's going to be the unsung hero of this defense. I think when you look at Oregon and the people, whether it's national prognosticators or whatever, people that are kind of just looking at game by game, week by week at Oregon, they're going to look at defense. They're going to look at who? Mateo Uiagalelei. Oh man, he had 2 sacks last week. And he's the guy that led the Big Ten in sacks last year, and he's great. Amari Washington, we just talked about him. He's an absolute beast. In the middle there, they're going to talk about Bryce Betcher, right, who's the linebacker that's going to clean up with all these tackles. They're going to talk about maybe Dylan Thieneman in the back end, right? That's 4 guys already off the top. But I'm watching Tatum in this game against Montana State, and he was tied for the team lead in tackles, right, with 5. Amari Washington was in there as well with 5. And he's just consistently driving his opponent back into the backfield. He's really disciplined. He rarely, I think maybe one time I saw on the rewatch, maybe he gets sucked into a play. He does a really good job setting the edge. He's just a really disciplined player. Of course, his 3rd year now in this Ducks program. And I'm just like, my eyes they were drawn to 44 in what he was doing. And, you need a player like that you can just depend on. Is he, gonna pack like is he the athletic full package of somebody like an Amari or maybe a Mateo? No, maybe not. But he's always there, strong upper body. Man, Tatum just played a really good game. I thought he played a really good game, and I think he's going to be a big piece, and he's going to be that underrated piece that people don't necessarily – he's not one of the first couple of people that kind of come out of your mouth every week. But I think there's going to be some games, and I think he's going to show some consistency. Easy for me to say as this thing goes along. And then you talked about Nasir Wyatt. Happy birthday! I think I saw that on Twitter today. I think it's Nasir Wyatt's birthday today. So celebrate, young man. But man, I mean, he is just so explosive on that one sack that you talked about coming off the edge. I really hope they get him involved in some of these speed packages, right? Maybe get Blake Purchase on the field, get Nasir Wyatt on the field at the same time, and, get just a bunch of on a 3rd and 8, on a 3rd and 9, let your corners do their thing in man coverage and just come after the quarterback. That's where I would love to see Nasir Wyatt this season, because, man, he really showed a lot of pop. And he came onto campus. You might know this better than I do from a recruiting perspective. I thought he was around like 205, maybe, when he came out.
Might have even less. I was told 190.
Was it less than that? Yeah, and he put on, I think, 20 or so pounds when he got onto campus. Right, he was hitting it in Wilson Love's strength and conditioning program right away. So if he can add on that power, maintain that speed, he's going to be dangerous. Man, you watch just so many of these freshmen, and it's crazy. Like I was doing a segment on my program where it's just like, is it an overreaction or an eventual truth? And there's some people out there in the online sphere saying, well, this freshman class, they're going to be the best freshman class that Oregon has ever seen. And I think a big reason that I think is going to be probably an eventual truth is look at the amount of freshmen that are playing in significant roles right away. Look at DeCorian Moore. Look at Brandon Finney. Just look at all these guys that are, I know it's Montana State, and I know they got a lot of people on the field, but it's going to be hard to deny this talent. I said that throughout the spring, throughout the fall, and I'm like, good luck keeping Neem Offord off the field before he was injured. Good luck keeping Trey McNutt off the field. Now you can good luck keeping Brandon Finney off the field. Good luck keeping Nasir Wyatt off the field. Good luck keeping all of these guys off the field. It's certainly an embarrassment of riches. Dan talked about that in his press conference of just the amount of guys in the last 2 signing classes that saw the field and looked really good on Saturday. It's exciting to see. That's where they are in game 1. Where are they going to be in game 6, game 7, game 8 as the season goes along? That's kind of a scary thought for opponents.
And that's what makes college football so fun is seeing the development and having a newer team like Oregon. I think that might be the appropriate word, because you do have some experience, but you have a lot of young underclassmen that are just flashing their talent right away. So that's what's going to be fun to see. And we'll see what kind of steps forward they can take week 2 against Oklahoma State. So there's going to be a lot for us to watch, and we're going to have you guys covered every step of the way over at scoopduck.com. Again, just special time for the site right now. You can take advantage of the $1 promo right now. Get yourself started. $1 for your first week and get a complimentary year of The Athletic included with your subscription. If you enjoy listening to Ted and I, you can find us over there. Ted is a part of the community as well, and he's over on the message board talking with fans and all that good stuff. But I think that's going to do it for us here on today's episode of the pod. Make sure to check out Ted on social media. He's at Ted on the Ducks, and you can listen to him and watch him, that show out west. If you want to find more of me, follow me at Torres Sports on all social media platforms. Subscribe to the Scoop Duck on 3 YouTube channel to join our community there, and share the show. Share the Ducks Dish podcast with everyone you know, maybe another Duck fan while you're at it. But big thank you to Ted for coming on. Really enjoyed chopping it up with you, man. And thank you to you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.